Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Assaf Moghadam, and it's my pleasure to moderate this next panel under the title, The Geopolitical and Global Terrorism Impacts of October 7th. I would first like to take the opportunity to thank our colleagues from the Konrad Adenauer Foundation for their long-standing support for the Lauder School of Government Diplomacy and Strategy, Rimmel University, so we're delighted to have here with us the new director of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation's Israel office, Michael Rimmel, who sits here to my right. He assumed his new position in late August this year, and before that he led the executive branch at the foundation's headquarters in Berlin from 2018 to 2024. He has experience in German politics, having worked as senior advisor to the president of the German parliament and deputy head of the presidential office from 2012 to 2018. He also headed the parliamentary office of Professor Dr. Norbert Lammert between 2009 and 2011, and he holds degrees in political science from the Freie Universität Berlin and Tel Aviv University. We're also delighted to have with us here today Ambassador Dimiter Tzantchev, the ambassador of the European Union to Israel. Ambassador Tzantchev is a seasoned diplomat with a deep connection to the Middle East, having studied Arab and Middle Eastern history and politics in his youth. His diplomatic career spanned several high-profile roles, including service as Bulgaria's ambassador to Israel and to the UN in Geneva. So this is actually his third stint in Israel, third diplomatic stint. He assumed his current role as the EU's ambassador to Israel in 2021, bringing with him a very, very strong commitment fostering peace and strengthening EU-Israel relations. And our third panelist is my colleague from Rimmel University, Dr. Meir Javedanfar, who is a lecturer at Rimmel University and has previously worked, among other things, as a foreign affairs commentator for BBC Persian. He's the co-author with Yossi Melman of The Nuclear Sphinx of Tehran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and the State of Iran. And he received his PhD from the University of Haifa, where his dissertation examined Mohammad Reza Shah's security decision-making in relation to Iraq and the Soviet Union. So thank you very much for being here. And let me jump right into it. And let me start with Michael Rimmel to my right here. I wanted to ask you, could you share with us, Michael, a bit your perspective or your notion of the German perspective regarding the current war in the Middle East, and also how has Germany's perspective also influenced its cooperation with Europe?
Yes, thank you, Assaf, for the question. Thank you for being here today for us in this important day, the 7th of October, 1 year after the beginning of the war and the horrific terror attack from Hamas. Germany looks at Israel as an important ally, important friend in the Middle East, in the world, of course. And after the 7th of October, all the German politicians, all the German politics, of course, try to find ways to continue the relationship, to build it up, to help where they can, not only politicians, also in other assignments and other levels of the country. We heard today already Olaf Lindner speaking here and Thomas Haldenwang, which also represent different authorities in Germany. So there were a lot of build-up, a lot of continuous efforts to help Israel in this situation. And I think if you go to the German Bundestag, shortly after the 7th of October, there was a resolution where all the parties did it together, but which is quite unusual in German politicians or politics to happen. So there were a lot of efforts to build up the relationship. It, of course, after a year, after the 7th of October, it changed a little bit. The German politics is still very aligned with Israeli politics, but of course there is also criticism about the way the war is being dealt with, what is happening in Gaza. You probably heard the foreign minister of Germany speaking about it a few times, not all of us are the same, have the same ideas as she has, but it's something that we hear more and more in German politics. And maybe a different level from German politics is German society. And in the German society, we see, of course, before the 7th of October, but also since the 7th of October, more and more criticism and a negative point of view on Israeli politics, society, not as at all, but there is a negative point of view. And if there's a lot of surveys being dealt in this situation, so you see a lot of negative build-up in Germany towards Israel. And as we know, in Israel, it's the opposite. More Israelis look positively on Germany, and this is something that we also in the Konrad Adenauer Foundation try to work on. We have to show the German society why is Israel fighting Hamas and Hezbollah. What is meant also for Germany, and in the last months and weeks we saw also that Germany tries to deal more with terrorist organization. It's not a subject only for Israel. It's also a subject for Germany and also for the European Union to deal more with. But it's something we have to explain better. And I think something very important, maybe as a last sentence, we have to do more. Israel has to do more to win its allies. So to keep its allies close to it, you have to explain better what you are doing, what is your policy, and where you want to go to, in order that your allies will stay on your side.
Thank you so much. And I think we've seen in this conference really how important an ally Germany has been and continues to be with Israel, especially during this crisis. Let us, from Germany, maybe zoom a bit out and look at the European Union and Ambassador Tzantchev. I wanted to ask you, first of all, the relationships between the European Union and Israel, how to put it, they've had their ups and downs. But could you maybe, just to get us started, talk to us a little bit about how the EU, your perception of how the EU reacted to the October 7th attacks? What did the EU do concretely also?
Well, first of all, today we mark the most, I would say, the saddest anniversary of the first year anniversary of the biggest tragedy in the history of the Israeli people and the biggest anti-Semitic pogrom after the Holocaust. And the European reaction in these first days after the Hamas terror attacks was very unequivocal, from wall-to-wall support to the state of Israel, to its right to defend itself according to the international law. We had very strong declarations made by the President of the European Commission, the President of the European Parliament, the High Representative for Foreign and Security Policy, Commissioner for Enlargement, Neighborhood, other commissioners as well. We had special events of solidarity in the European Parliament. We had the building of the Commission enlightened with the colors of the Israeli national flag. And also, I would quote here the very clear words of the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who said on 13th of October during her visit of solidarity that in the face of this unspeakable tragedy, there is only one possible response: Europe stands with Israel. She was also very clear to say that there is no justification for Hamas acts of terror, and that she condemned these acts clearly in strongest possible terms. And these are the acts that brought immense suffering not only upon the people of Israel, but also upon innocent Palestinians. And that Hamas, and what Hamas did on October 7, 1 year ago, is in fact that ignited the spiral of violence which brought the entire region to a state of instability and extreme tension. So I would say this initial reaction is the core of the European reaction to October 7. Of course, during the last 1 year, we also expressed our concerns related to the humanitarian situation in Gaza and the impact of this on the prospects of the two-state solution and the prospects of finding a solution which will allow the state of Israel to exist in peace and security with its neighbors and along with a Palestinian state by its side. But our position is very clear. It has been also confirmed with regard to other threats, security threats that the state of Israel faced in the last 1 year. The two Iranian attacks, which were unprecedented in October and on 1st of October and in April 13, where we condemned these attacks once again, and we also reaffirmed our commitment to Israel's security.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Meir, so, you know, we're obviously now in a situation, Iran is currently, seems to be awaiting a retaliatory strike by the Israelis, right, in response to their missile attack. And meanwhile, the Iranian regime has said that it has kind of boxed itself into a response by saying that it will, in any event, respond militarily to the Israeli response. Can you take us, and you are very, very familiar with Iran, you've lived there until shortly after your bar mitzvah, and can you take us a little bit into the heads of the Iranian decision makers? Is there any method to this apparent madness? Is there any strategic thinking behind, you know, Iran seeming to kind of constantly climbing the escalatory ladder? Is there any strategy behind it?
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation to be on this, and thank you for allowing me to be on this distinguished panel. Iran was surprised by the October 7th attack by Hamas. The Iranians, it seems to me, were not aware that Hamas wanted to carry out such an attack. Their response was haphazard. They were thrown into this, and the first initial reaction was to save Hamas by all means possible by getting Hezbollah to attack Israel on the 8th of October. It is my strong belief that if Iran knew Hamas wanted to carry out such a strike, they would have either stopped them or they would have made sure that Hezbollah also joins in by attacking Israel in the north, because Iranians know that Hamas on its own would not be able to withstand an Israeli onslaught. So initially, the Iranians have had to come up with a short-term strategy and a long-term strategy. The short-term strategy, first and foremost, is to stretch Israel out militarily and economically. They do so by getting Israel engaged in as many fronts as possible. First, this is why they introduced Hezbollah to the war, in order to pull away Israeli forces from the border with Gaza and to stretch Israel's military capabilities and also economic capabilities. This is also why the Iranians brought into the equation attacks by Shia militia from Iraq. And of course, let's not forget the Houthis. So first and foremost, it's to stretch out Israel as much as possible so that Israel is weakened to the point where it agrees the new rules of the game dictated to it by Iran's proxies. Also, Iran wants to reestablish its deterrence. Iranians believe Iranian hardliners who are in charge of the regime. In Iran, we have a dual system of government and regime, but of course they're not equal. The government is subservient to the regime, and the regime feels that Israel is not deterred. This is why they've attacked us twice using missiles and drones. They feel that Israel, according to foreign publications, killed Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. Israel has been involved in killing Iranian IRGC officials around the region. It even went as far as killing Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah. They feel that the Israelis have no fear. They're not deterred. So it's very important for the Islamic Republic of Iran to reestablish deterrence through direct attacks. Now, of course, I'm not going to tell you that this was not without opposition in Iran. Some people in Iran believe, excuse me, we don't have the economy to go into a war with Iraq. And there's another interesting argument in Iran. Excuse me, who's proxy? Hezbollah is supposed to be our proxy. Hezbollah is supposed to fight for us. And now we are entering war against Israel for Hezbollah? So whose proxies? Are we Hezbollah's proxy, or is Hezbollah our proxy? Because in the proxy model, it's the whole reason we have a proxy is that they attack the enemy, not us. When the enemy responds to the proxy, not us. But now this whole model seems to be failing, and this is concerning the Iranian regime. Another important long-term and short-term strategy, I know I have 1 minute, you told me 5 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, the Iranian regime wants to destroy Israel through numerous ways. One of them is not going to be nuclear weapons. I don't think they're going to use nuclear weapons. But they will do everything in their power through conventional means to scare Israelis into leaving this country. They want Israelis to leave this country. They check the migration figures from Israel. This is part of their strategy. They want more and more Israelis to go and get a second passport and to leave this country. So ultimately it leads to its collapse. This is part of their short and long-term strategy. I have 10 seconds for the long-term strategy. I'll answer it in the next allotted time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let me turn again to you, Michael. One of the major consequences of the October 7th attacks, which went beyond Israel, is that we've witnessed this dramatic surge in anti-Semitism. Could you maybe shed some light on how this anti-Semitism has manifested itself in Germany, and your perspectives regarding the German role? What is Germany's role in addressing this scourge of anti-Semitism?
Of course, for Germany, fighting anti-Semitism is one of the core elements of the country itself. If there are some learnings from the Holocaust and from the Second World War, is that anti-Semitism is not acceptable in any kind of way. And I think there are no many countries in the world that are dealing with anti-Semitism in the way Germany is dealing with. And still we have problems. As we see, you see the pro-Palestinian demonstration in Germany. There were some yesterday, there are some today. And this is something that is still happening, but it's something that is concerning German politicians and German public very much. They tried, or they made a law after the 7th of October that you cannot say different slogans openly from the river to the sea, for example, and different other ways to fight anti-Semitism, but it doesn't work so easily as we would like to. So there's a lot to do. Lawmakers have to do a lot more in order to prohibit and ban anti-Semitism from the streets, from schools, from universities. And we have a lot of struggles. Of course, one major subject in German politics is in the moment the illegal immigration to Germany and to Europe. Maybe some of you already saw the last election that we have in some countries inside of Germany, where the right-wing extremists won the elections, also the left extremist populist parties win the election, and one of the main issues why they win those elections is the illegal immigration and the implication it has on society. And this is something that will stay a major issue in German politics. We have to, the lawmakers have to fight more against it, may have to find different ways. And I think one way to fight it is to bring more German young people to Israel, to make more encounters with Jewish people, with Israeli people. The Jewish German community is very small. There is maybe 100,000 officially members of the Jewish community in Germany. Maybe there are 200,000 if you count the Israelis. So there are almost no encounters between those communities, and this is something I think we have to do more.
Thank you, and shout out to our many German students here on campus. And so we have many of them, and we're very fond of them. Ambassador Tzantchev, going back again to Europe, what do you think what role can the EU play in helping to diffuse the current crisis, and what do you think are the main challenges for the EU in doing so? Do you think that it has leverage here in Israel? Yeah.
The main challenge for the European Union in this specific situation during the last 1 year is to face two tragedies going simultaneously. One is the enormous trauma and tragedy of the Jewish people that had to face once again the deadliest anti-Semitic pogrom after the Holocaust, the deep trauma of the Jewish people that feel unsafe in their own country, and this is the only Jewish country in the world. The trauma that 70,000 people are still displaced, and the northern part of Israel is depopulated. It has never been since the establishment of the State of Israel, but even before, with the beginning of the Zionist project. And at the same time, the drama of the Palestinians, the normal Palestinians that are not involved with Hamas, because Hamas is also affecting the core interests of the Palestinian people. Not all the Palestinians are Hamas, and Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. They also suffer under this tyrannic regime for already 18 years. And the humanitarian situation is something that deeply worries the European Union. Why? Because these are human beings, but also because the longer and the deeper is the humanitarian suffering, the more difficult are the prospects to find afterwards some solution. We in Europe have faced in our history situations where nations and communities and people that have fought against each other for centuries, at the end, after a lot of bloodshed, two major wars, two world wars, have come to the conclusion that they should find a way to live together. And this has been the basis of what is now the European Union. So we still believe that this will be also possible in the Middle East. And one of the major impacts of what Hamas did, followed by Hezbollah on 7th of October last year, is that it very negatively impacted the prospects to build a new Middle East. All the processes that were going in that direction have been seriously affected. I speak here about the Oslo process. I speak here about the Abraham Accords. Everything has been thrown years back. And as we support the two-state solution, we believe that at some point, after the two sides will overcome the trauma, it will take time. Of course, we are not blind, and if we see, and I'm talking every day with the Israelis on the street, average Israeli people, and I see how they suffer with what has fallen on their heads in this last year. But after the trauma is over, I believe the two communities will again start seeking how they can live together. And this is our biggest challenge, how to approach these two communities with keeping our ties strong with both of them.
Thank you so much. I hear the time's up, but yeah. I have to ask Meir just one very, very short, less than a minute. In terms of Iranian regime stability, do you think that Iran is any closer to seeing its regime go down? And if not, do you think that at least is Iran reconsidering its proxy strategy now that it has suffered a major setback? Very short, please, because otherwise they're going to kill me.
Unfortunately, the Iranian regime is only falling in my dreams and the dreams of millions of other Iranians. The simple reason being that judge a man by his friends. Who is Ayatollah Khamenei's friends? Mr. Bashar al-Assad, Mr. Vladimir Putin. And they know how to stay in power. Unlike Mohammad Reza Shah of blessed memory, this regime is willing to rule on a sea of blood. Whether it's going to reconsider its strategy, I think the Iranians are going to continue, they're going to rebuild again. But I think our response, and I really hope that we're going to be careful with our response to Iran, but our response against Iran, which is coming in the next few days or whenever, could have strategic implications on Iran's calculations towards Israel. We all complain that this government doesn't have a strategy. Fair enough, Gaza, Lebanon. But on Iran, Lady Luck has provided us with an opportunity to bring a strategic change to the way Iran calculates its dealings with Israel. Let's hope that this opportunity is used wisely.
Thank you so much. On this note, thank you so much to the panelists, and interesting times ahead.